I'm not even going any further. This is terrible. If you want to just skip the rest of the video, totally understandable, but I think you might find some humor in this one. So welcome to the channel. This is the full UkeGuide review of the Fuyxan Soprano Laminate Ukulele. I didn't buy this. A student brought it in and asked me to take a look at it and to tune it up, and it is a mess. And this review, I think, will be helpful because there are still bad ukuleles on the market, and unfortunately, they're still being sold to people that will buy them for their kids. And this playing experience is awful. If you heard the intro and how badly I was struggling, just go listen to pretty much any other review, and you'll see how a setup on an instrument and the overall playing condition can really impact your playing. Even if you have a small narrow nut, there are other factors on hand. So what we're going to do in this review is we're going to go over some really subjective categories that I look at with all ukuleles. Then we'll take a look at the specifications, and then I'll give it a summary and a UkeGuide rating. Now, if you are interested in seeing the summary document, that will be at UkeGuide.info or UkeStuff.info, which is really the main channel. UkeGuide.info is just a shortcut there. And if you want to support the work here, there are really three things you can do. First of all, you can like the video. Even though I don't post likes or dislikes, I don't show those on the comments or whatever, it still helps the algorithm. Second, you can subscribe to the channel. And third, you can always buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com to say, hey, thanks for making those videos. Now, before we go any further into this too, I brought this home so that I can try to set it up. And we'll talk about setup later. It's going to take a while, and I think it can become a playable instrument, but right now it's a mess. So let's get into subjective categories. The first category is cost, and I don't know how much this costs. I'm going to guess around $30, and I can't find it on Amazon. I can find similar looking instruments, like there's Apelia or something like that that sort of looks like it. I even reviewed recently the Aiersi soprano painted that's similar but not quite the same, and this really makes Aiersi, which I was like impartial with. I think this got a 2.5 out of 5. Not a big fan compared to the other things that Aiersi does. Makes the Aiersi look like 10 times the instrument. So basically that's where to go. Now, in terms of value, this isn't worth it at any price, but you do get a very light gig bag. You get a neck strap, and you get a little booklet. Plus, on the inside of the booklet, you get extra strings and a plastic pick. And that's what you get for whatever you pay for this. I don't know. I don't know how much you pay for this. I believe Fuyxan is a company that basically makes ukuleles for other companies, pretty much almost like toy level quality or worse. And that's too bad because I think it does have some qualities that can make it a playable instrument. We're just not there right now. So the value, the price, whatever price you would pay, it'd be too much for this instrument. The build quality is awful. I don't know if you can see it, but there are bumps underneath the paint all over. Especially like up here, can you see that in the light? Yeah, that's just painted over bumps. The finish up here around the fretboard and the neck is awful. It's a painted fretboard. The dots aren't in the right spot. I mean, it just, yeah, and it's even worse on the inside. So let's go take a look at the inside. All right, taking a look at the inside of the Fuyxan here. You can see the glue mess. Look at the ragged edges there. Not even smooth edges where they glued things together. There is a tail block there. And there you can see more of just the ragged edges, the glue mess everywhere. This is the messiest ukulele on the inside that I have ever reviewed on this channel. All right, let's take a look at the upper bout. Okay, looking at the upper bout, you can see there's the neck block, lots and lots of glue up there. More of the completely non-smooth edges and just jagged edges. I don't know what that large glue stain is. I don't know what that plugged hole is. This is just a mess on the inside. And there's also no label in the sound hole at all. And that's the inside. All right, so we're back. Yeah, it's a total mess on the inside too. Now, are any of these critical flaws? Well, in terms of playability, action that is that high, and we'll get into action later with the specifications, I think that's a critical issue, but it's adjustable. I mean, the nut is like weirdly like glued on. It's not even on straight against the neck, which is crazy. I'm gonna have to break that off and sand that down too. But it's just a mess. It's a mess of an instrument. So the build quality is really, really, really low. Low quality laminate, just a mess of a build. In terms of appearance, from a distance, it doesn't look too bad, but once you get up close, it's a mess. So it's, yeah, overall, the word for this instrument is mess. In terms of availability, I don't know where you get this. I looked on eBay, couldn't find it. Looked on Amazon, couldn't find it. Looked on AliExpress and couldn't find it. If you know where these are, just leave a comment and let me know where we can find these. Although, don't buy one. Don't buy one of these. There are so many other instruments to buy. This is not the one to buy. In terms of playability, the playability is the worst of any instrument that I've reviewed on this channel. And there's been a few that I thought were basically unplayable. There was one that actually came with the action so poorly set that the strings were resting on the frets. It isn't that bad, but it's darn near close that bad. The action is well over 2.5 millimeters at the first fret, I believe. Just checking at 3.25 millimeters at the first fret and over 5.5 millimeters at the 12th fret down here. That's, I mean, that's ridiculous. And it's so far that even if those are in tune, by the time you press down a string, it's sharp because you're pulling it so far out of tune. And I think about my student who's a beginning player and how hard she would have to work to play chords and how bad it would sound. It wouldn't be long before you'd be out of ukulele completely. So that's a complete mess. The build is awful for that. Now, in terms of sound quality, if I can just focus on the open strings, it's a really light build, so the sound isn't bad. It's a laminate, it's a cheap sound, but there's some sustain. You know, I wouldn't say it has a ton of character, but the sound isn't the worst. It's a pretty good volume. It's a darker tone than it is bright or pingy. And that's why I think that maybe with some work this can be salvaged. But the amount of time you'd have to put into it, if you were going to buy it or bring it to a luthier, it would never pay for itself. You'd be far better served with any one of 1,000 other ukuleles on the market and spending $20 more and buying something much, much nicer. So the sound quality is okay, but I think you can get as good of sound quality from a slightly more expensive instrument that's going to be such a better playing experience. One of the things I do on these videos is I let you see what I'm hearing by playing the most open chord that I can into Tonal Energy Tuner, an app on my iPad that lets you take a look at what's happening with the harmonic energy of the instrument. So I'll play the C chord here. It'll be badly out of tune, but you can at least see what's going on. So here we go. So Tonal Energy Tuner is actually giving it a lot of credit for some high-end frequencies there that I don't really hear sustain, but definitely the sustain, which is there, is on the low end of the instrument, which is kind of what you'd expect for a laminate sound. Right, now that we've talked about the subjective categories, let's go into the specifications. It is a soprano scale instrument. From nut to saddle, it's 13.625 inches. So Not exactly a standard measurement, but I've seen it elsewhere over the ukuleles that I've reviewed. It's 12 frets with 12 to the body. And when I'm playing harmonics, harmonics seem to be in the right spot. So that's a positive as well. There are no side position markers, and the front dots are in the wrong spot. They're at 4, 6, and 9. Made playing for Elise very tricky today because the dots are in the wrong spot, and then also with the action so high, it's just hard to play in general. It is a double bout ukulele, and I don't know what the laminate is. No idea. Probably basswood, not sure. So the soundboard and back and sides are all that laminate of unknown. The fretboard, who knows what it is? It's painted, not even painted well. The bridge, don't know. It's painted as well, and it's a tie bar bridge with 2 screws in it. The fretboard is definitely not a radius fretboard, and the nut and saddle are plastic, and the nut is just a mess up there. I'm going to have to sand that down before I glue it back on after taking it off. And of course the saddle is a straight saddle and not compensated, and thankfully I do have some room to take it down, but mostly that's going to have to come from the nut, I think. All right, the finish is a matte painted black and not even well. The overall length is 20.75 inches, so it's not even a 21-inch ukulele. And it weighs 12.3 ounces, which is its one, I think, real saving benefit. I think that helps its tone a little bit. The tone is the one thing that's passable on this instrument, and I think that's helped by the light build. It has inexpensive open-geared tuners that don't really grind. I mean, they actually work okay, but I don't think it's that hard for companies to find decent working open-geared tuners, which is why when you find a company that has them that don't work, you're kind of like, if you can get working tuners on something like this, why can't you on pretty much any other model? It's a really good question in 2021. Now, here is where the mess truly begins, other than on the inside of the instrument, if you saw that earlier in the video. The action at the first fret is 3.25 millimeters. That's higher than you want the action at the 12th, period, regardless of who you are playing. That's insane. The action of the 12th fret is 5.5 millimeters. It's ridiculously high. It makes it unplayable as an instrument. The nut width is 34.69 millimeters, so approaching 35 millimeters, pretty much what you'd expect. The space between strings is a little narrow. At the first fret, it's 8.49 millimeters between strings, 28.02 G to A, so it's narrow spacing, but that's kind of what you'd expect in this price point, even with a working ukulele. And the depth of the neck is really messed up because I measure from the top of the strings to the bottom of the neck. That action really messes up this measurement. It's the highest I've ever measured, 24.25 millimeters from the top of the strings to the bottom of the neck. So realistically, this is an ukulele that will not be recommended for purchase. Now, on a related note, before we go to the summary, I just thought it would be interesting just to compare it to the Aiersi that I recently reviewed that is going to be going to a student at my school as well. So let me tune this up in 1 second here. In fact, I'll do that on the video, and then I'll tune up the Fuyxan as well, and we can compare the two of them. It's not wanting to find the E. There it is. And if you remember the review of the Aiersi, or if you haven't checked it out, for some reason the A string is untrue and it's playing 2 pitches. And it's not a sympathetic vibration, it's the string itself. So tuning up the Fuyxan again. There we go. All right. So I just wanted to compare these two since I've got this one next to me and it makes sense to compare them. The Fuyxan, open. Playing any chord is just not going to work. So the sound is actually pretty decent. The Aiersi, much more muted, much more dark. Again, not my favorite. So I think the Fuyxan has some more potential in terms of sound, but just watch me just play a little bit. I'll just play the Snowden Symphony by Mark Pugh at Stone's Music in the UK, because the action on the Aiersi is good. It's set up right. I don't know if you can see the difference. There's the action on a well set up instrument that came that way, and here's the action on a poorly set up instrument. So just the difference in just playability, even though the sound of the Fuyxan has the potential to be better. So the sound isn't better, but the playing experience is versus this. I mean, I really almost can't press down hard enough. And I do have a couple injuries on my fingers right now. On my third finger here, I've got a kind of a cut, and on my second finger, which is impeding my ability to play, and it isn't being helped at all by the action here. So I just thought it'd be interesting to compare the two of those. The Fuyxan has some more potential in terms of sound, but I wouldn't buy it because of its overall condition and build quality, which is just, both of those are just awful. All right, so let's summarize the instrument and give it a UkeGuide rating. Again, I have no idea how much this costs. I'm guessing in the $30 range. It comes with a light gig bag, comes with a little booklet, some picks, and a neck strap. Incidentally, if you wanted to put a just normal strap button on here, you can. There is a tail block, which is good to know. But otherwise, this thing is a mess. The paint job is awful. The dots, which I think are just stickers, are in the wrong spot. The build on the inside is a mess. The action is terrible. The neck shape isn't terrible. It's nice and kind of a nice profile there, except it's just cheap paint on top of it. And the neck profile is ruined by the fact that the strings are so high on it. So this is a great example of why I'm doing these reviews. It's fun to do reviews of really nice ukuleles. It's not so fun to do reviews of these, but the reality is that people find these and they buy them and they give them as gifts. And kids are given these and they're expected to play them, and they're nearly unplayable. And it's just, that's not good. That's not good. And I'm not in the position as a teacher where I can look at a student and say, no, you've got to have your parents send this back. I can't do that. What I can do is try to salvage this and make it as playable as I can. And I should be able to bring down that action quite a bit to help that student and make this a much better instrument. But it's time that shouldn't need to be spent on this. Now, there was a time when this was how ukuleles were sold. So many had action that were just this terrible. Barry Maslin got a ukulele, the leading reviewer in this field. He just recently talked about the fact that all his reviews have been positive lately. And like he gives a rating like I think on a 10, and most of his ratings are 8 and above at this point. That's because the quality has gone up throughout the industry, but there are still exceptions to the norm. And the other thing that's kind of sad is that Fuyxan has a plastic ukulele. I found a couple of them, and the only way that I know that they were made by Fuyxan is because they were actually had a Fuyxan stamped on the inside of the plastic, but they were under different brand names with the companies that were selling them. Anyway, those instruments were much more playable. The setup was much more accurate. So I know the company knows what it needs to do. It's just choosing not to do it, and that's not okay. All right, so I give ukuleles a rating between 0 and 5 ukuleles. And any ukulele that doesn't have side position markers gets a maximum of 3.5. This doesn't even make it to a full ukulele out of 5. This is a 0.5 out of 5 ukulele. It is best avoided in this condition unless the company changes its quality control standards and the setup. Don't do it. Don't do it. You will spend $75 to $150 getting this set up by a luthier, and you can buy so much more and better from anywhere, almost anywhere on Amazon, but certainly from an ukulele specialist like Mims Ukes, the Uke Republic, um, going out U-Space out in California, Aloha City Ukuleles, Southern Ukulele Store, World of Ukes, the Uke Room, so many places that you can buy ukuleles from throughout the world from an ukulele specialist at that price point, and get a so much better ukulele. All right, so hate to bring you bad ones, but you know, that's the reality of what's out there. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll be back soon with some more Uke stuff for you.